Okay, so one of the things I get asked about quite a lot is writing names and text into the dry clay, especially on imprint jewellery like handprints and fingerprints, because it just personalises it that bit further. So here I've got my shape cut out, I've imprinted it with the handprint that I want to use, and I've been asked to write a name and age on the back of this piece. There's lots of different options for this. You can make a stamp with a polymer plate with the name and the age. You can use letter stamps, which are available, or you can handwrite it. And I actually find that most of the mums, when they order these, like to have the handwritten text or names. So on the back here, I've refined the piece, I've sanded it, it's all good, I'm happy with that. I just need to engrave the name now before it's fired. So on the back, you can see I've already written it out. Now to write it, I always use one of these mechanical fine tip pencils. I find them the best. They give a nice fine line and they're quite accurate. And what you need to make sure is you don't press too hard so that you're kind of indenting the clay. That you write the name where you choose. Always go around the outside so that we're not directly behind the handprint where the clay is slightly thinner, so there's no danger of going right through the piece. Yes, so I always make sure that I'm absolutely happy with the lettering before I write anything, before I engrave it any further. So I'll just show you here on this piece. If I was going to write Joe, I'll try and keep the letters the same sort of spacing apart and the same sort of size, so that you've got a little bit of uniformity. And once you're happy with the way you've written it, I then use 3 different tools. There's no right way or wrong way to do this, it's just what you prefer, but I find this works well for me and it may help other people. So to start with, I always use like quite a fine needle tool. You could use a pin or a similar sort of thing. I like this one, it's my favourite for doing this, starting off this kind of writing. And just with gentle, very gentle pressure, just kind of start by scratching the surface over the letters that I've written in pencil with the tip of the needle tool. So I usually use a magnifying light to look through when I'm doing this, just because my eyes aren't great, and it just gives much more clarity. And I quite also like to use these double-ended brushes. You've kind of got a silicone wipeout tool there and a brush, and when you get any excess, I just brush it off gently. So I'm happy, reasonably happy that I've got that about right. Sometimes I make fine adjustments as I'm going. But you just want to go over it 2 or 3 times, just nice and lightly, over exactly the same lines. You've not got double lines if possible. Just make sure you gently brush away any excess shavings. And then on to the next letter. Work in the same direction all the while. There we are. And again, brush off. And then onto the E. So you're getting the picture now. This is the best way I find. Once you've done all of the letters nice and lightly, I then move on to my next tool, which is one of these kind of scribing pens. Now it's got a lovely kind of heavy weight to it. It's just like a ballpoint pen, except it's got a very sharp tip. And I tend to hold it exactly like a pen, as if I'm writing. It gives the line more depth, and it kind of creates a bit of a kind of a V shape. So I do try and keep it upright as far as possible. So if you can keep it perpendicular, that's great. If you can't, for reasons of videoing, I'm just going to show you on the slant. You place that into the line that you've already created and just go over it several times. And it will just make it bolder, slightly wider, and more defined. And I tend to go over that 3 or 4 times as well, with reasonable increasing the pressure slightly, just so that we're getting a nice deeper line, because I do find that I like to polish my pieces, and certainly the imprint jewellery, I like to give it a mirror finish. And if I'm going to be polishing it lots, then you don't want to actually be polishing the engraving out. So this is the reason why I go over it several times. And when I'm happy that I've got it reasonably nice and deep, sometimes I'll get a little sanding pad, and at this stage I can just gently rub over the letters and rub out any pencil, because my scribing tools have already, can you see that there? They've already kind of indented the clay for me. So you can see where I've gone over the J with the thicker scriber. It's much clearer than the O and the E here. And I would continue to go over the whole name with this. Once I'm happy that I've got a nice kind of deep line, you can see that this one here now, as I'm going over it one more time, is filled with kind of silver dust, silver clay dust. You don't want that, so again, just brush it out so you've got a nice clear letter. When I'm happy with that I've been over it enough, I then use one of these fine embossing tools, and you can see I pick the finest end possible, and you usually can get them in sets, so you can get a really fine one like this. And I tend then to go over it again with this, and it just gives it a little bit more definition. It softens the outside lines a little bit, so it doesn't look quite so harsh, and you just get a really nice, clear, deep line. You can see that there. And if I need to go over it again, I do. Try and keep all the letters the same sort of depth. I don't know if you can see there. And those really are my hints and tips on how to write into silver, or this dry form silver clay. Once you've done that and you're happy with it, it can be fired. And here we are. Just wanted to show you some examples of some finished pieces that have been fired and polished, that have been handwritten in. You've got Monty there with his date of birth, little Ellie and Jacob, and you can see how nice and clear those are.